Eric Muadit, Muadit.com, for the weekend of November 7th and November 8th, 2015. Let's take a look at how markets closed here on Friday. We can see a little bit of an upswing, nice small close to the upside on the major averages. See that gold was down about 1.5% and crude oil was down about 2%. For the week, the S&P 500 was up 0.95%. For the week, the Dow was up 1.4%, and for the week, the NASDAQ was up almost 2%, up 1.85%. So let's begin our analysis by taking a look at the NASDAQ. And if we take a look at the monthly, on the NASDAQ, we can see that we are coming here, and as of right now, the market is showing very strong action by holding above and staying right now above the previous all-time monthly closing high, and the level to watch there is 5128.28, so 5128. As long as the market is holding above that, this is a good breakout that could take market even higher. So that's the level to watch. Anything above that is a very strong and bullish market. If we take a look at the long-term monthly view for the NASDAQ, we can see that this right here is the highest close, and any breakout above that takes the market to all-time monthly closing highs if it can hold on. So this is a major breakout if the market can continue holding above that level. We take a look at the weekly for the NASDAQ, and we see that it's coming back to test the same level we've been watching. If you draw the RSI like that, so as we close the week, we ended exactly on that line, which is one view where the market could stall or at least get into some resistance that we've been watching. And also there's another layer of resistance based on the previous resistance levels of the high here on the weekly. So there was a high there. The market did show resistance on that red line, which happens to be just slightly under 61.8 on the weekly. So if the market can move above those two lines, then there's going to be more added pressure to the upside. At the same time, failure to hold above those two lines, as we've been saying for a while, failure to hold above those two lines would indicate a market that wants to pull back. If we take a look at the NASDAQ Daily, if we take the line connecting the highs of late 2014, highs on the RSI on the daily of late February, and extend it, it looks something like that. And right now we are trading exactly around this level on the daily. So if this turns out to be resistance, then that will indicate that we might get some type of a pullback. On the other hand, if the daily RSI leads to a breakout above that line, then that's going to also increase the momentum to the upside. Since we closed on the line, we have to wait to see which way the market decides to take. If you take a look at the Dow Weekly, just like the NASDAQ, if you take the line connecting the RSI highs going back to early 2014 and late 2014 here, so these highs on the RSI, we see that we are trading back here. Another thing we have to also be aware is just because the market has really come from this level here, almost seemingly straight up to this level, that's a very strong move in a short period of time. That generally, this type of a V-type formation tends to run out of momentum because of the velocity of the move. So it would seem logic here, or logically, that the market has to at least give back some of these nice gains since the lows of August. And also again, coming back, the fact that we are trading back at resistance, maybe if the weekly action is struggling, then the market starts pulling back on all other time frames. If you take a look at the Dow on the daily, there's some encouraging signs for market bulls, because here we can see that we were really taking the 200-day moving average, but now it's flattening out, and also we have a 50-day moving average that is carving up. So maybe what we are doing here is, over time, even with pullbacks, eventually build the market back to an upward trending market. In other words, it's not a bad looking chart, because it is actually repairing some of its directions of its moving averages. We come to the Dow on the daily, and depending on how you look at it, one can say that, yeah, there was a breakout a couple weeks ago here and the RSI moved above that level, or you can even take this next breakout here on the daily. So on the daily, the Dow looks good. You can see that the daily is still showing the RSI trading above 69.1, and that's a strong market. So the Dow, to be honest, is actually looking good on the daily. If we take a look at the Dow 30-minute chart, and here I'm using RSI period of 26 instead of the usual 14, so I'm using 26 here. Just take a line connecting the lows here throughout these lows. You see that the market did hold coming into the close of Friday. Just do it something like that. And so short term looks like the market is actually acting very well, finding support where it needs to, and that's a market that can grind to new highs very easily. Take a look at the Dow Transports Daily, and just want to show you the line where right now we are back to this trend line highs right here. And so either this can be another instant of resistance and we get a pullback, or this time around the market breaks out and moves higher. There's also a level here on the RSI. If you draw it like that, you can see that there's a wedge that can be formed. And so on the daily, we can see that the market is really at a point of deciding whether it wants to break out and continue moving higher. So that's an option, given that we are coming close to the conclusion of that wedge, or we break down and we see lower prices. And since we don't know which way the market is going to take, we have to wait for the conclusion of that wedge. Let's take a look at the long-term monthly view for the Dow Transports, and just want to go back to a simple strategy here. Every time you see a market bounce and hold the 50 level with a uniform action on the monthly RSI, you can see that the Dow Transports have gone on to record new highs. You had uniform action below the 50 level there and back above it for the lows of late 2011. We touched that 50 level in 2012 for the lows there, and over the last 2 months we've held that 50 level. Now, if it is going to do what it has been doing over the last 5 years or so, that suggests that there's a possibility that this market might have to make new highs because of this very strong support holding on the 50 level on the monthly. Take a look at the S&P 500 weekly, and right now it looks like there's an argument here that it is already breaking out above the resistance line on the weekly, which would be great for market bulls. But at the same time, we are also showing resistance, or at least we are coming back to test the level of resistance where the market has been struggling. If you take a look at the level right there where it's stalled on that red line, that is where we have this high, and we stalled again here, which is this current weekly closing high. So just like the Dow and the NASDAQ, we are still showing some level of resistance around here. And I think if we have a down week around here confirming resistance, then that's when we might start looking for more confirmation on the other time frames that the market is due for some type of a pullback. And again, keep in mind, we've had a nice straight move, about 5 weeks straight up. So market is due for some type of a pullback because of this strong V-type formation. Take a look at the S&P 500 daily, and if you take the daily closing high there and the daily closing high there, draw a straight line, you can see that it is this past week it came and hit that level there and has for now been unable to move above that. So if the market is to clear that line, or if the market is to record new highs, it needs to clear that level of resistance in the short term. So I hope you can see that. It's just a simple line connecting the recent daily highs like that, and we were unable to move above that this past week. On the daily, just like the NASDAQ, S&P 500 already broke out above the previous resistance line on the daily, and so it looks good as long as it is above this line of a breakout. So since the breakout here, anything that is keeping the market above the blue line, even with pullbacks, and coming and finding support on the blue line. If it holds and moving higher, would be a signal that the market is going to continue to grind to the upside. So this breakout on the daily is actually pretty encouraging for market bulls. Take a look at the S&P 500 hourly, and here again I'm using RSI. You can use either RSI period of 26. I notice here I'm using 21, but same thing. So RSI period of 26, if you take the lows on the hourly, you see that at the lows of Friday, the market hit that level and held. And that's why maybe the market had a little bit of a nice uptick towards the close, because of that support on that clearly defined RSI lows line on the hourly. Let's take a look at Apple here, and if we take a look at the highs on the weekly RSI and extend that line of resistance, you can see that right now the market is flirting with that line right there. If it can break out, that would be great. Otherwise, if we see resistance on the same line, on that weekly RSI line, any resistance here would indicate a market that is eventually going to have to pull back in the short term. That's one layer of resistance that we have to look for. And also there's a line here since the break. Let's draw it like that. Since we broke down below the previous support line here in June, the market came off the highs there. We tested that red line again, which was the highs here, and now we are back testing that same level. If the market cannot move above that red line, then we should expect a pullback. If the market clears that red line, then the market should push Apple higher. On the daily, there is a level of resistance somewhere around there. As you can see that it has been stalling since here. Every time it hits that red level, it seems to stall. And now we are back here. So clearly, if the stock is to move high, it needs to clear that red line. Any resistance on that level would indicate that it is next swing trade is going to be to the downside. Just like the other hourly charts we've been looking at, if you take the lows line and extend it, you see that it connects nicely with the lows here, and also over the last day or so. So bouncing on that line and continuing to build on that would indicate higher levels short term. And the key here is, unfortunately for bulls, if it breaks that line, that would indicate that there's some type of a correction, or at least a pullback that's going to take place. So right now we ended the week with support, and so it looks like it is looking okay. But if we for some reason break that line, then we can expect some type of a pullback. So in conclusion, the key for this market is actually not as complicated. It is really on the monthly charts. If the NASDAQ can continue holding above the level we discussed at the beginning of the video, which is 5,128.28, which is the previous all-time monthly closing high, anything above that is a market on breakout mode, which would indicate a market that might grind to the upside. If we fail to hold above that level, then the market is running out of momentum. So but right now we closed above that. We have to respect the potential for even continued upside movement. Take a look at the S&P 500, and the level to watch for a breakout is if it can clear the recent monthly closing highs, which I believe are also all-time monthly closing highs for the S&P 500, and the level to watch there for the SPX is 2107.39. So anything above that would suggest a market that is also breaking out on the SPX. We haven't broken out yet, but take note of that. 2107.39 would indicate a breakout on the S&P 500, and for the Dow, it needs to break out above the 2015 and also all-time monthly closing highs. The level to watch for the Dow to break out, if it breaks out, is 18,132.70. Any breakout above that previous monthly closing high is really going to put pressure to the upside. ericmuadetmuade.com. Enjoy your weekend. For subscribers, I'll have part 2 ready for you guys sometime tomorrow. Good luck, peace, and blessings. EACS.